Let's talk about One Battle After Another, the new Paul Thomas Anderson film, which I think is definitely one of the best films of the year and definitely one of those films of the decade that will define the decade and decades to come will be seen as a classic. So this movie has a lot to unpack, so I don't think I'm going to unpack everything in one video. I don't think I'm going to get the messaging right. I think Paul Thomas Anderson made this film quote unquote messy on purpose because life is messy, and this film doesn't try to sort of give you the one right answer. It sort of is trying to reflect on everything going on, and it is just Paul Thomas Anderson's most timely and urgent film to date, and one of the most important films of our generation so far, I think. So let's talk about it. Let's unpack some of the things in here that I think really stood out to me personally, and there's a ton of other things to talk about it. We could do a part 2 explained video talking more about that if you want, but let's get into One Battle After Another. Check out our other videos if you haven't already. We're going through our TIFF and Fantastic Fest selections that we watched, and we have some reviews out for that as well, so make sure you check those out. But let's get into Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another. At its core, this movie is about the character of Bob, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, as well as the character of Willa, played by Chase Infiniti, a father and daughter trying to reunite once again after the daughter goes missing when Lockjaw, who is played by Penn, who is out to get Bob and his family, goes after Willa. So, of course, if you've watched the movie already, I don't think these are spoilers if you're watching Andy Explained, but the reason that Lockjaw goes after Willa is because he is trying to join the Christmas Adventurers Club. And this is a white supremacist group of sorts that's almost like an Illuminati type vibe, where they're like in the shadows and they're like controlling like several key factors in America. Like they have control throughout, and they are super racist and just the worst kinds of people. Lockjaw wants to join this, and the reason he gets asked to join this as well is because he has been on an anti-immigration sort of legacy for the last 16 years. However, there is a big if he can join, because they're not entirely sure if he has a daughter out there that might be mixed. And of course, these are white supremacists, and that's a no-go. And this daughter could in fact be Willa. And this is the daughter of Bob in Perfidia Beverly Hills, who is the character Teyana Taylor plays at the beginning. She's such an interesting character as well. So this is why we see that Lockjaw begins a total raid on a town where he knows that Bob and Willa are in, because he wants to get to Willa. He wants to do the DNA test. If Willa is in fact his daughter, he's going to get rid of her so she never existed and he can join this club. So this is pretty much the whole premise of the film. Willa's able to go into hiding thanks to Deandra, who is played by Regina Hall, when they find out that Lockjaw is back on the French 75. Now, Lockjaw had pretty much taken out a bunch of the French 75 at the beginning of the film, thanks to Perfidia pretty much ratting them out in order to gain her own freedom after she is caught during a bank robbery gone wrong. This is where I want to talk about Perfidia's characters. So Perfidia was a complex character to begin with. She is a revolutionary at heart. She wants to change the world, and she sort of starts to get lost in this as well, especially when she becomes pregnant with Willa. And we see that Bob, who is played by Leonardo DiCaprio, or otherwise called Ghetto Pat at times, is trying to convince Perfidia to stop with the revolutionary stuff and let's just start a family. And I think it was such an interesting choice here, because I think that's something that we see a lot happen, not just saying with people that are revolutionaries or any of that, but I think once somebody becomes a parent and you have these very strong ideas of how your life should be, we see that there is a reckoning that comes with it, where you have to choose between becoming the parent that you should be, or you continue on with the life that you want to have or think you should have. We see that Perfidia has a lot to sort of like dabble with the French 75, because up until the point she became pregnant, they had been doing all of these like jobs where they were helping immigrants, they were taking out banks, politician offices, things like that. They were really feeling they were doing something to sort of change the world that we live in for the better. But we see that when she became pregnant, she also felt lost. And I think it really taps into this sort of sense of losing yourself when you become a mother, a parent. And I thought it was so interesting to showcase that sort of weird feeling that maybe a parent might have once their children are here where maybe they feel that their life is done and now they're just going to be known as a parent and nothing more. And there's a sort of fear of identity loss there. And I think her character is so important to this because she also just wanted the revolution to happen. I felt like she felt that the cause was so important, but at the same time, she almost lost sight of everything because yes, the cause is important, but she also did have her daughter as well. And I think these emotions sort of clouded her judgment during that day at the bank robbery. And although she didn't want to do maybe what she did, it was sort of herself getting caught up in that moment. And I think also by the end when she rats out the people, I don't think she's doing this really in a way because she felt that the movement failed or all of that. But I think in that moment, you really can't judge somebody who does something in order to save themselves because that is just human nature, right? And yes, the cause was important and all of that, but she saw that her life was going to go away pretty much. And yes, it might have been selfish and it might have been something that the whole group saw as bad. But at the end of the day, she is still human and humans will do human things. And I think that's what Paul Thomas Anderson is getting at here. These are all revolutionaries, but they are not perfect. They are not here to have all of the answers for you or to say that this is the right way to do it or that one is going to be the hero. It is the movement itself. These little battles are what ultimately will cause the big change later down the road, a chain reaction of sorts, if you will. I thought they showcased that brilliantly for Perfidia, but also for Bob. We see that Leonardo DiCaprio's character of Bob at the beginning of the film is so sure of himself. He's on it. He's ready to become that top revolutionary. He's on job from job to job. And then when we meet him later years down the road, we see that this is not the Bob we knew from the beginning of the film. This is a completely different person now. We see that he doesn't remember the passwords or any of that. And it sort of gets lost into the wind with him because he has devoted now his life to becoming a father, and he maybe feels that he has let down his child because he's not on top of things anymore. He has sort of become a passive person that has just let life happen and sort of just be carried by the wind of sorts. Like he's not really marching towards life anymore. He is just letting it go by. And I think that we see that as he tries to, throughout the film, become this like person he used to be. He is successful in finding his daughter again and reuniting with her, but it took a lot out of him. It took him trying to go back to who he was and sort of escape from the mold that he had become now of this person who has just let life pass them by and just completely lost themselves. So I think we see sort of how parents lose themselves once they become parents and sort of forget who they are themselves, their true identity. They aren't just mom and dad, they were somebody else before that. And I think that that's something that's showcased brilliantly between Bob and Perfidia throughout this whole film. I also do love that we get a character like Benicio del Toro, Sensei, who is called the Latin Harriet Tubman. As we see throughout the film, they are sort of there to keep it all together. They're somebody who hasn't lost their sense of who they are, even though they've become older or they might have a family. They're still able to keep themselves grounded to what really is that they are passionate about. And of course, in the world for Sensei, it is helping these families that are being persecuted by this fascist government. And we see that he's still able to help Bob as well out and almost help Bob find his like self again. We see it in that scene when Bob is able to get out of the apartment building thanks to Sensei and able to go forth and find his daughter. It's like Pat gets a jolt of electricity of who he used to be, and seeing how brave the Sensei is and how much he's there to help the people. We see that Bob just cannot help himself but to shout, "God damn it! Viva la revolution!" Because he feels that again. He feels a spark of life come back to him that was lost for the last 16 years. And I think that he truly finds it within Sensei, truly is his Sensei at the end of the day. And even in the hospital when he's saved again by Sensei, you see it. You see that this spark to go find Willa is back into Bob, and it really pushes him to be able to go into that final confrontation to find her again. Deandra as well is somebody who I think never lost sight of what she really was fighting for. And we see it when she just bravely goes to find Willa at the school dance and is putting her life in danger, knowing damn well that her mother put everybody else in danger all those years ago. We see that Deandra doesn't hold that grudge. She sees that the future can be better. And I think that was an interesting choice here, because I think a lot of times we see people that maybe were about these causes, were wanting change into the world, were wanting the revolution to happen. Years and years and years pass by and they sort of lose hope in the next generation and see that the next generation might not be all the way there as they used to be. But instead of trying to show what revolution can be like or show what a better world is, a lot of people simply just sit back and let the younger generation just fumble and fall and just sort of critique and just be like, well, y'all will never get it, right? I think Deandra really showcases that there is still hope, that the revolution will be there in the younger generation, and them wanting a better life is still going to be present. And Deandra is just an incredible character that we see is so selfless by the end. She just wanted to keep Willa safe, and she was able to do that. And although she was caught in this, she still has sort of lit that flame in Willa that hopefully will continue to light others' flames in order to continue the revolution that her and her comrades started years ago. And I thought that that was such a brilliant character. And Regina Hall is just an incredible actress throughout. And opposite to all of that, of course, is Lockjaw, played by Sean Penn, in one of the most sinister and just weird performances I've seen all year. Lockjaw is a character that brings out a lot in you as you're watching him on the screen, because he is such an offbeat, weird guy, and at the same time sinister and dangerous. We see that he is willing to do whatever it takes to gain supremacy, to gain power. That even means taking out his own daughter. And I think Lockjaw is such an interesting character that truly represents a lot of the fascism that we have and are dealing with in society, because this is a character who was willing to do whatever it takes to just assert power. The Christian Adventurers Club is a mission of his, that he will do whatever it takes, even taking on a whole city, raiding it, destroying families, taking kids away from their parents, doing whatever it takes in order to clean up, quote unquote, the mess that the Christian Adventurers Club want him to do. He's willing to sacrifice whoever it takes. People can just be collateral damage to him and he doesn't give a damn. He is such a despicable character, and we even see at the end that he is disposable himself. The Christian Adventurers Club, although they bring him in and say that he's a brother and all of this, eventually dispose of him because he is not their ideal. And I think it showcases that the machine will churn and churn out all of these political figures or big figureheads no matter what. So you might think that one guy is in charge and all of that, but quickly dispose of him and the machine keeps turning. This is why it is a machine that is a monstrosity, because it is capable of eating their own, spitting them out, and choosing new ones to go forth with it. To them, it's not about brotherhood or being together. It's just about keeping the machine of supremacy going. And it is just so evil. And it truly is one battle after another, because Lockjaw might be gone by the end of it, as we see he gets killed by the Christian Adventurers Club, because they do find out by the end that Willa is indeed his daughter, and they can't have a guy who's been with black women, of course, because they are racist pieces of shit. So they take him out and just continue on like nothing ever happened. The machine keeps turning, the system keeps oppressing, and that's pretty much the end. But I think with our final character, of course, who is going to be Willa, played brilliantly by Chase Infiniti, we see that the new generation can go forth. They can continue on with the revolutionary ideas for a better world. Of course, Willa from the get-go was almost on teetering between not knowing what exactly to believe. She sees her dad as maybe just a paranoid guy that gets high a lot and doesn't really take what he's done seriously. That is until danger is right on her face, and she learns from the nuns, she learns from Deandra what exactly happened here, and she sort of drops her mother's hero status she had of her when she finds out that her mother actually ratted out a bunch of the French 75. And we see that she has to take matters into her own hands. She is the only one in control of her own future. It's not her dad that comes to save her, it's herself. She is the only one that can do this. And I think that really showcases how we are the only ones in control of our future, no matter what our parents did, no matter what our parents do and all of that. At the end of the day, it's what we do that's going to matter and how we define our legacy. And I think Willa is here to define her own legacy, to pave her future in her way, and decides that the revolution can still happen. It is just one battle after another, however, and her mom may have failed, her father may have quit, but that doesn't mean that she has to. It means that you keep on pushing and persevering and pushing these ideas and the revolution towards younger generations as they come. Don't let the idea get lost just because of failure, I think. But I also think it's interesting, we see her at the end of the film really come to terms with who her mother was and did, and still have an appreciative form for her, because of course her mother did what she did because of circumstance, what happened. And maybe she learns from that and she's able to sort of say, well, she did all of that and I can't really judge what she did because she was in those circumstances. And I think we see that as well. Her feelings towards her father change because of that. She knows who her father was and what he was trying to do. And even though he didn't succeed all the way, she knows that he still sort of is regarded as this very important figure, and the lessons learned from that can continue on towards the next generation as well. And by the end of the film, we see that she will continue to fight the good fight, and it's one battle after another. I don't know how many times I'm going to say that, but truly it is one battle after another. That Pat, played by Leo, is another character who was there and was important to certain aspects of the revolution that they tried to do. But at the end of the day, it was these women that were putting themselves out into the forefront. They were at the front of the battles. They were the ones that were orchestrating it all. Pat could be seen as a mediocre type of revolutionary because he forgets everything as well. He doesn't really even keep track with what's going on anymore. He has sort of lost sight of that revolution, and once the door opened up to get out of it, he was already out the door, ready to go and just finish what he had done. It was almost like it was a passing thing for Pat. It doesn't necessarily mean that there wasn't good intentions for him, but it was easy for him to just get out of the whole revolution and just go live a normal life, quote unquote, right? But he was able to just get out of it. And I think that's what we see a lot in society, right? There's a lot of people who go into this wanting to fight the good fight for a couple of years. Maybe they'll go to a couple protests, they'll try to give out as much information and just educate people, but after years go on, the revolution maybe was a fad for them. Maybe it was just something they were doing in college. Maybe it was just something because they saw their friends doing it, and then once nobody was doing it and years pass on, it's just whatever to them. It's no longer that important. And I thought that that's something that was really represented with Leonardo DiCaprio's character of Pat, the sort of revolutionary that lost sight of what the battle really was for, but found it once again in the spirit of the people that kept going and trying to push it, which was Sensei and Deandra, which were truly integral characters for the film. The final scenes between Willa and Pat at that road when she screams to him, "Who are you?" was such an important aspect of this film, because I think that we really see that those words truly pierce through Pat. He really doesn't know who he is, and I think he has lost sight of who he really was. And that was such a poignant point in the movie that really just drives home the messaging it's trying to say, with how we get lost in the titles we carry and all of that, and don't remember who we really are. And I thought it was such an incredible moment when he says, "Your dad," because that is who he really is. They are father and daughter at the end of the day. And yes, all of these things are happening, and yes, they can be all of these other things, but at its core, family and keeping themselves together is what's the most important and what will continue the revolution. It's not this sort of going out on your own to try and change the world, but sort of building that connection and building the foundation where you can leave it for the next generation, for them to continue the fight, because it's going to be one battle after another. Some other interesting side notes I want to talk about as well are just the way that I think communication can sort of get the whole message lost. We see a lot of people get caught up with the right way of doing things or the right sort of terminology, and it's something we see a lot happen between, you could say, people that are trying to fight the good fight. There is this sort of sense of, if you don't know all of the terms, if you don't know the history behind it or the figureheads and all of that, then you aren't really about it. And we see a lot of infighting between people that want to do good deep down, but it's just they're trying to figure out who's right or who really understands every single detail about it, and in the details you lose the whole picture, I think. And I think that's what Paul Thomas Anderson is also getting at with this film, is that the details are making us lose sight of the bigger picture here, and that is for a just world that is rid of fascism, racism, homophobia, things like that. We are losing sight of the true big picture, and that's the freedom for all and everybody just have a good life. But in that sense, we are losing that big picture due to the details, and the fascists are the ones that are taking advantage of that and making and molding the world in their own vision, which is a scary thought. But at the end of the day, it will still be one battle after another. Change doesn't happen overnight. And as they say, the revolution will not be televised. You can't just be a passive viewer in it and expect it to happen. And that's what I really got from that film, is that you see these atrocities happening throughout the world and even in your own backyard. And you think that somebody's going to come and swoop and save the day. They're not. It's just not going to change overnight. It is just one battle after another. So really love this film. Cannot wait to talk and dissect it more. I need to watch it again, honestly, because I think there's a lot to pick up from it as well. But truly an amazing, amazing film. So timely, so urgent, like I said, and just one of the best films of the year and of the decade. So very excited to talk more about it with y'all. If y'all want, make sure you hit that subscribe and notification bell. We are on the road to 50,000 subscribers. Let's get to it. Hit that notification bell so you never miss out on a video. And I'll see all of you next time. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on one battle after another, something you picked up. I'll see you next time. Stay safe, stay positive.